I thought you were going into the Inspector Gadget theme tune then.
A Failcast extra. Woohoo! Crashing into the barrier. I'll get you next, Apex. Hello, everybody, and welcome to FailcastF1 with your slightly paedophilic host, Mr. Balkenberg, and alongside me is a less paedophilic but equally awesome podcast host, Mr. Definitely Zero. How are you doing, good sir?
Hello, happy Valentine's to you, my broadcasting life partner.
And you?
How the devil have you been doing?
I've been doing rather well, thank you very much, and basking in all that is there in the coronavirus of love. How about yourself?
Well, I too am not dead, so that's definitely good for the benefit of the show. Yeah, I've been doing good. It's been the usual work stress, but yesterday I went out for an exceptionally good but also exceptionally expensive Indian meal. I ate all of the foods, so much so I didn't even need to have breakfast this morning. But very, very, very good. I would recommend.
I'm intrigued. What would you and the amazing Anna have had for your meal in terms of because I can imagine you going for something quite mighty fine.
Of course. I actually had tandoori chicken, but like a weird tandoori chicken that was, all gourmet and executive chefy. And to start, I had a chickpea curry with like a variation of a naan bread. And actually, the naan bread I got with my main meal had toasted onion seeds in it. Who knew? Who even knew how good those were?
Oh, I don't think I've had that before. Nom, 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 nom.
Toasted onion seeds. It was the balls. It was so good. But yeah, it was also a lot of money.
I tell you, actually, I've recently got into keema naans, which is where it's stuffed with minced meat. But they do it in like a really, really like the meat you get out of a samosa, but it's been like smashed down to a really, really thin layer. So, yeah, it's like having like a beef sandwich.
You've got to smash that meat. The thing for me is, I've never actually had a keema naan. Right? Shocking discovery, I know, for a guy who basically subsists entirely on Indian food. But I've always been put off by the fact that when I have a curry with a naan, and usually I have pakoras as well because fat. That's usually enough to get me feeling really, really full. And the idea of stuffing an already quite heavy meal with more meat was a bit rich for my blood. But I take your recommendation very seriously. I mean, for me though, like, Indian food is just soul food, and when you have it like so hot, like you can only just hang on, and then you get that amazing curry high about 10 minutes later. Yep. I feel amazing after a good curry.
Yeah, same. And what was I going to say? I've completely forgotten. Hello, people that are joining. This isn't the cooking show, I promise, but we're going to do food for a minute. There is a YouTube channel that I watch, and it's called Manjula's Kitchen, and it's an old like grandma, and everyone in the comments just calls her Granny, which I don't know if she finds that appealing or not, but tough. And she makes loads and loads of really, really random vegetable curries and stuff. So if I'm feeling like I need to be quite spicy but pretend to be healthy, then I like follow one of her instructions, and she just gets out a massive blender and just chucks half the world in it, and then it's like Asafoetida shouts it at you, and then just like that's the end of the dinner. And I'm like, okay, done.
I can get behind that. I think that's a fairly good cooking philosophy. Yeah, why not? While we're recommending food YouTubers, which is entirely not the point of the show, but fuck it, yeah. we're on this train now. Let's ride it to the station. I've been watching one called Binging with Babish.
Oh yes.
And they're really, really good. You know, where he makes stuff off TV, and it actually turns out often quite gross, but then he'll always try and make a nice variation. So the other day I was watching him do the car panini from Family Guy, where, you know, his wife won't let him eat unhealthy food, so he sneaks out to the Quickie Mart and He makes a toasted sandwich in his car that's full of like Cadbury's cream eggs and things like that. But a great channel, very very good channel, and I actually quite enjoy cooking. That's been a secret passion of mine for some years.
I enjoy eating more than I do cooking, which is my problem.
Oh,
Manor in the chat has just said he may get a ruby later, but I don't actually know what a ruby would mean. So, to me, that means something entirely different.
Isn't it Cockney rhyming slang, me old China? You're a southerner, you should know this.
See, I don't think that rhymes with ruby is booby.
No, it's short for Ruby Murray.
Oh! See, I'd have said a Murray Walker, curry talker, just massive farts.
Do you know, it's a sad day when a bloke from Lancashire is a better Cockney than you.
I'm Essex geese, isn't it?
I'm sure the South will forgive you in time. I mean, I would be careful though, because my understanding of Cockney culture is that they only kill their own. So maybe you're okay.
Pitchforks at dawn. Mind you, I'm just saying from Essex because I've never been on a fucking tanning bed, so we're all doomed, really. Never mind. Not going on Slag Island.
So, shall we talk about some Formula 1 on this Formula 1 podcast?
Let's do it. The Formula 1, the one that is Formula, and we are into sometimes some of our favourite points of the season, aren't we? We've just coming up to the first parts of testing, so we get to make rude predictions that will be so far off base, we might as well be in Narnia. And we get to enjoy car liveries and the slight tiny renaissance of a car launch.
Oh, all the pretty colours. It is one of my favourite times of year, to be honest. It's always interesting to see what people have done, what they've pulled out. Not just in terms of the livery, but the overall design of the car. And there has been some very interesting decisions taken on some of these cars. Mm-hmm. But we will get onto those properly in a moment, because you've touched on something that we were talking about before we went live, which is how I've come to see car launches as sort of becoming less and less significant until quite recently. Because, I'm sure we aren't alone amongst the people listening to this that remember the glory days of the 80s and 90s launches, like David Coulthard and Mika Hakkinen making the Spice Girls uncomfortable, or
that wasn't on a launch though.
that was after the launch. And wasn't it something to do with Channel 5 as well, which shows how truly classy that whole event was?
Yes.
But it used to be a big deal, a car launch. I mean, Tyrrells were always quite understated, but in general, particularly teams like Benetton and McLaren and Renault later on, they would always sort of go the extra mile, and it tended to be something of an occasion. And maybe McLaren have gone a little bit more in that direction the last few years, by having a big proper event with fans included at the McLaren Technology Centre. But in general, it's sort of calmed down a little bit, and I don't put that down to them cost cutting or anything. I think maybe it was just seen as a bit gratuitous. I don't know. However, one or two teams did make a bit more of an effort, namely AlphaTauri and Ferrari for recruiting the bizarrest orchestra in the world, and giving their car an orchestral serenade, shall we call it.
Toot toot.
But in general, it's become sort of de rigueur for teams to just whip a blanket off at the test track. And I kind of miss the sense of occasion that we used to get. Because online launches I always find underwhelming as well. Like Haas's half-harsed, here's a mock-up of what our car might look like if we'd bothered to launch it. Anything that's like computer generated, because Caterham were the ones that started that. And I've never forgiven them.
Dirtbags. Thank you, Manor, for saying I'm a disgrace to Essex. I'm so proud now. There's a balance to be struck by, and I think you have this for quite a lot of just events in general, of having something that can be launched online so that people feel like so you can cast your net and have a wide audience and stuff like that, but you still need to make it a bit of a spectacle for the people that have actually bothered to turn up. Because I always find it really, really funny when they're like, "Oh, I'm going to live stream my concert," and everyone that comes to descend on a concert can't see the people on the stage because there's giant fuck off cameras everywhere going like close up. And I was like, So no, it's quite nice that we're starting to have a little bit of vigour back into car launches. And we was just talking because there was a new update for the game that we was just waiting to install, which is why we were a few minutes late. Apologies, but I had a survey come out from F1Voice.com, which is some of the stuff that does all of the fan opinions, and everyone's like, I want spec cars, and I just secretly try and get everyone's emails and bump them off in the night. And they'd sent out one specifically around car launches, and actually they were saying, like, would you tune into live events? Would you tune into live streams? Would you go to a dedicated place with other fans, was one question that they said, to watch car launches together, which I felt was a bit I don't think so. I don't wonder if they're trying to tie up car launches maybe with an F1 event in the future, where they do the F1 live events everywhere. That kind of made me think that they were thinking that route. And after the first launch, I can't remember which one it was now, but I then got a survey afterwards. It was basically, did you tune in? Did you watch? What did you think of it? What do you look for in car launches? And it was things like, I look for the performance, the car, the drivers, the interviews, or the entertainment. And I was like, well, depends how stupid the entertainment's going to be.
But is there entertainment? I watched all the car launches the year before last, and most of them last year, and normally what happens is they do some unveiling of the car, and then they get some vox pops from the drivers and some boring old man in a suit, and then everyone goes home. And the one thing Jeremy Clarkson's always been definitely right about, because when they were doing old school Top Gear, they needed a racing driver, but the reason they made the Stig mute is he correctly identified that there's no racing driver in history who's able to talk in an interesting way. and it's also true about drivers today. I mean, there are some that are personalities that can be interesting, but when they're talking about what they actually do, it's boring as fuck every time, because they have to say the same thing over and over, and it's all to keep the sponsors happy, particularly at those heavily curated press events. I'd rather not hear it, to be honest. Can we just see the car?
Yep.
That's what everyone's there for, really. Is the car a pretty colour? What do the race suits look like? Okay, now we can go home.
Yeah.
Hello, Beetlejuice.
It's funny because you're right, especially with those types of press events, you're not going to get anything juicy or any kind of off-the-cuff comments, because it's so heavily press force-fed and cookie cutter. There is nothing to kind of say that's going to be new, so it doesn't surprise me at all. I think one of the interesting questions that came out of the survey, and it continues to make me worry about how spec F1's going to go in the future, is it asked a direct question, was basically, do you prefer finding out about a new livery on a car launch or seeing what's new technically? And I went out of my way to click technically, even though, to be fair, I do look at the livery first and judge that, because I want to still have individualism in Formula 1 Plus, and I shall keep my crusade for until we die.
No, I mean, I understand why they asked that question, and to be honest, I agree. The livery is the first thing I look at, but I definitely also look at the touches of the car. And this is why I would definitely have answered no to the question that you also answered no to, which is, would you go to a place and watch car launches with other fans? No. Because I'd hear someone say, oh, why don't they just have spec cars? And then I'd have to go on a rant. Don't touch me, you filthy peasant.
Hands off the merchandise.
Yeah, just be gone.
Go to IndyCar where you belong. Well,
yeah. There's a million spec series. We don't need another. Be gone with you.
Death nails. Love it.
Beetlejuice also adds, he generally agrees, but it seems to be universal to all sports. If you listen to footballers after a match, yeah, very good point. Very, very good point. And the average fan would say, I look at delivery on Lewis's Instagram. Also very true. Although I will say, his new helmet is very nice.
Oh, I've not seen it.
Purple it is.
Oh, I have seen it. Yes, I didn't know that was his. I just saw that it was a new helmet, and I didn't quite know whose it was supposed to be. Sorry, because I was too busy laughing at the Bottas 3.0 beard.
There's an inappropriate joke just hanging there, just hanging there.
The problem is that most of his body's already hung out on Snapchat, so I don't need much to the imagination of his purple helmet.
No, I was going to say, I know how hard it is to identify the owner when a helmet comes at you out of nowhere.
I've sat in the wrong cubicle in the toilet before. It is quite scary.
Oh, we're going to get kicked off one of these platforms one day.
That's why we live life on the edge.
On the edge of failure. So, why don't we... before we get onto the car launches and what we've thought so far, because that's kind of the highlight, why don't we quickly have a chat about some of the other news that has been going on in the world of news. Now, the big one that's had us both scratching our little bearded chins was the announcement of the world's boringest man, Stoffel van Dorn, confirmed as a Mercedes F1 reserve driver this year. Yes. We were both a little confused about that, but at the same time I was kind of thinking, well, actually, I suppose, why the fuck not? Because Ocon's gone, and they can always steal Georgie Russell, I'm sure, if they really needed to.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like the equivalent of putting him in the corner with a colouring book. I don't know. But I don't know. The press was trying to spin it as, well, this is his chance to make a comeback, and I was thinking it really isn't.
I don't think he wants to make a comeback. Because he's doing so well in Formula E as it is.
Beetlejuice asks, will he be the next Luca Badoa? I don't know. That's quite a lofty goal for someone like Stoffel. I mean, to be honest, he was only announced yesterday or this morning, and I'd already forgotten. I had to remind myself before we went live that he's a person.
Shit. Yeah, he could well be. To be honest, we need a new Badoa / Paffett, but
I thought you were going to say Max Papis. Then I was like, we don't need another Max Papis. This sport ain't big enough for two Max Papises. I may have caused that by driving fast in front of a guy who's coming out of the pits.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, he may well be the next one. The issue, it's not just him that's really confused me either.
That's ruined my lap.
Because Mercedes have also then announced that he will be sharing those duties with Esteban Gutierrez, no less, who, from Haas and Sauber fame, spent 3 years just being mildly okay, yet is continuously rated across the paddock. Went to Formula E, didn't do very well there. Went in to do some IndyCar races, didn't really set the world alight there. May have done very well to win the Formula 3 championship when he won it, or GP3 championship when he won it, back in 2012 or 13? 12. But yeah, I don't really understand what he has done since to gain any more praise, let alone a test drive with the top team, when they've already got drivers queuing at their door to try and take over from Bottas 3.0. And
with his massive, ridiculous gnome beard that they put on for a joke. Ha ha ha. Aren't they so with it and down with the kids over at Mercedes, everybody?
Hashtag end /end sarcasm.
Oh, fuck.
Please don't say you've just crashed.
No, I very nearly did. I was reading Beetlejuice's comment and it made me laugh a little bit, and I missed my breaking point. It's all right. I don't really need to go again. I was just doing it so my screen wasn't boring.
Yes, he was a Ferrari sim test driver, Gutierrez. So he has been around the block. That was when they took him on, as well as Jean-Eric Verne, for a bizarre year.
Yeah. Jev was a real loss, I think. Gutierrez, less so. I said to you before we went live, the only thing I really remember about him, aside from the teams he drove for, was that he was upside down a bit once. Which hardly qualifies as sort of a career highlight. But that's principally what I remember about him. That, and doesn't he sometimes wear glasses?
Yes.
But the thing is, like, if we were playing a game of Guess Who, I'd find it really hard to help you flip down enough cards to know it was him.
Oh dear.
But Beetlejuice says he misses one thing about Stoffel. This is what made me laugh and miss my breaking point. The look on his face at the Belgian Grand Prix when the Dutch guy gets all the support.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh dear, we've lost a Ferrari. RAI this year is hilarious because, again, Kimi has not made it out of Q1, but Russell is 9th.
I completely rinsed Sector 2. Thanks, Beetlejuice. Your help is always appreciated. I've gotten a bit complacent recently. I haven't been crashing quite enough, so it's always good to have a little nudge here and there.
Love it.
Yeah, I rinsed Sector 2. All the time I gained over you is just Sector 2.
I think you've got a good 3-4 temps on me here.
Well, you're faster than me in Sector 1 and 2 by a few tenths, but I'm faster than anybody. The next person is 9 tenths down on me in Sector 2.
I added extra wing to my car because it's a wet race.
What? Why was I not informed of this? Oh no! Jeff! Oh no! Oh bollocks!
Esteban, it's Jones. There's another one. There's another one. In the comments.
Well, fuck nuts.
Well, it's only light rain though. It's not heavy rain.
That's enough. Don't worry. That is definitely enough. I'm so bad in the wet in this version of the game. Right. Well, I'm going to stay in the pits a little bit. That's punishment to everybody who's finding this funny.
I'm going for a test.
Also, we have Drive to Survive Season 2 starts 13 days, less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see how that goes. Oh, I'm inside a Red Bull. I'll be very, very interested. I think I'm going to do shots for Grosjean jokes and see if my brother survives.
There has to be some good ones, because there were some good ones already in the last season. So there has to definitely be some good ones this time. And Season 3, that could be the gift from the gods, you know.
When he finally gets kicked out. We hope.
Well, I mean, I don't know. He could redeem himself. The thing is, like, he's become our punching bag the last few years. Primarily mine. And it's partly because I really did believe in him.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be amazing, and then it's just damp squib.
Yeah, I mean,
2012 is a very long time away.
Yeah, not even meh. Because, you know, meh doesn't crash into the wall under the safety car and blame a driver who's nowhere near them. And, like, he's crashed under safety car or on the warm-up lap more than once.
Yep.
And then, you know, in the pit lane at the British Grand Prix, span it for absolutely no conceivable reason. He's just become sort of allergic to success.
It's interesting because he has become the internet punching bag, and I did read an interview where they the entire interview was basically, how do you feel that the whole internet just finds you hilarious all day, every day, and no matter what you do, we will basically make a meme out of it. And he was quite, like, okay about it, but it must be quite difficult to, like, at some point, and I don't know quite where I sit in this on my own head. Is the fact that your Grosjean is your driver is going to get you memes all the way across the internet? Is that a good thing for publicity because of the sheer numbers of what he's doing?
That's what I was about to say. I wonder if it comes up in his sponsorship discussions.
Yeah, look at how much view time I get everywhere, because like again, it's actually Waffle Van Yorn. He could like perfectly competent driver, was not crashing nearly enough, was not being so meme worthy at all because he was so dull as dishwater, so no screen time at all. So I wonder if there's like a reverse psychology on it.
Well, it would make some sense, right? Because what you want is there must be some logic to it, because that's what you want, right? You want exposure, and you want. I'm sorry. What? What universe are we in? George Russell. George Russell.
Oh shit! I keep running wide on that corner. He's about 10th in our championship.
Did you see he got a nice birthday present from Nicholas Latifi?
Yes.
To stop him taking his shirt off all the time.
It did make me laugh.
I have to say, like, I know I'm repeating myself, but him, Albon, and Norris have been such a breath of fresh air to the sport. They really have.
Funny how just a couple of people, just with a different attitude, can really, really change how you feel about like an entire sport.
Beetlejuice reckons that when Haas reviews driver applications, they make their decision based on mentions on social media. To be honest, that wouldn't be surprising, because I know companies now vet your social media before hiring you. That's the world we live in now, an Orwellian police state, where I'm now unemployable because I want my Romain Grosjean jokes.
Waiting for that to be a headline. Romain Grosjean memes cost me my job.
I'm going to get on the phone to the Daily Star right after we're done with this.
Boo. I hope someone doesn't see me when I'm drunk watching Eurovision. The amount of crap that comes onto my Twitter feed those nights. Irredeemable.
Well, to be honest, like my view is just own it. It only has power over you if you let it have power over you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like there's a big debate here, right? Because it's tradition in Germany to put a picture on your resume, like have a photograph.
Yeah, that's a very European thing. Polish people do it as well.
Yeah, and it's very controversial, not least because women particularly sort of feel they're being judged on how they look. And I've had this conversation with a lot of my colleagues, and I say to them, well, then just don't put a picture on. And like, yeah, but maybe they throw out my application if I don't. I was like, yeah, but if you have a problem with it, like a real moral objection, don't put a picture on. I refuse to put a picture on. It's not relevant to my ability to do the job, so it's not information they need. And they'll see me interview anyway. So if they don't want, if they want to put up a sign, "No ugly bastards," then they can kick me out at interview. And it's the same thing with where people say, "Well, you tweeted this," and you just go, "Well, yeah, I did. So what?" It only has power if you let it have power. That's my view on it. And I wouldn't want to work for somebody who was like, "You had an opinion, we have to get rid of you."
Exactly. A couple of things I want to say on that, actually. First one, if that topic interests anyone whatsoever, John Ronson, the journalist, has a really fantastic book, and it's an audio book because someone's uploaded it onto YouTube, which is how I found it. And it's around the first woman who got sacked for being shamed on Twitter. And she'd made, I think it's some kind of AIDS joke or something, to like 40 followers. And then she went and got on a plane, and then no one could contact her to get rid of the tweet because someone had decided to make her offended on it. And by the time she landed on the plane, her own boss had sacked her on the internet, and she didn't even know. And people had uploaded like a tracker to follow her plane and stuff. Bizarre. Justin Sacco, if I remember the name. But yeah, if that interests you, go and have a look at that. The other thing is Forgotten. Fuck it. Never mind.
I also hate stuff like that. You are correct, Beetlejuice. I am a Grosjean phobe. So, yeah. I just have to own it. No, I really do hate stuff like that. And I think Ricky Gervais actually has this down totally correctly. He said in his Humanity show, getting offended at something someone puts up on Twitter is like being in the town square and seeing a notice board, and on the notice board there's a sign, guitar lessons, and then you rip it down and go, I don't fucking want guitar lessons, and then ringing them up and going, I don't want fucking guitar lessons. It's not for you, just move on.
Yep. Completely understand. Bizarre
I am unemployable in France, and I'm not going to jump on the Gasly train. I don't know, he's really good at Toro Rosso, but I just can't get behind Pierre Gasly. I don't know why.
Yes, very strange, very strange.
Maybe the French levels are just too high. Maybe I can't handle that. No, I don't know why I can't get excited by Gasly. I wasn't excited when he was announced at Red Bull, and I almost wasn't surprised when he kind of wilted like a cabbage once he was in the seat.
It. Yeah, no, completely agree, and he's got a history of doing it as well, because he seems to get himself into sink or swim scenarios, and then it's really 50-50 as to whether it happens, because he was going to get kicked out of the Red Bull driver program, which I guess means that he would end up in the Red Bull seat anyway, because on the season that he then went to win Super Formula or GP2, I can't remember which one it was. I can't remember if he won GP2 in the end. But essentially, he'd done really crap for the first few races, and then he hadn't won anything and was falling down the order and just being a bit meh. And then once he won a race, it was like he decided, I can win, and then he couldn't stop for the rest of the season, and that's what took him to Super Formula. Okay, so it was GP2. Sorry, just working out of my head. Where kind of the same pattern started to happen again. So it's almost like he needs to have a good result to then remember how to do it properly, and then he's okay. But that good result never came at Red Bull, whereas it did in Toro Rosso, where the pressure is off. So for me, that almost puts him in a Fisichellerian, Trilliarian, like, put him in the front car, can't do the job, stick him in a midfielder, suddenly creating wonders left, right and centre.
Firmly inside the Heinz-Howell-Frentzen triangle.
Yes.
Yeah, Beetlejuice said exactly the same thing, and it's probably true. It's just, the way he arrived in the sport, I got the feeling he was supposed to be pushed as, the next big thing after Max Verstappen, and I never got that feeling from him. But also, when he talks to the press, there's something about him that I just find completely meh. Just blur. There's like nothing there. Do you know what I mean? I don't hate him. I don't like him. He's just he's there. He's sort of like a lawn chair or a vase.
He's going to be in your Waffle Van Yorn camp, I think.
Yeah. Beetlejuice points out, actually, it is like Frentzen, because he was supposed to be the next German after Michael.
It's true.
But the thing is, Frentzen, I think, was a missed opportunity. I think he had it. I do think he had it. He couldn't bring it when it mattered.
No, that's true. And he had one season to prove it, and that was a season where Jacques Villeneuve ruined him mentally. Because then in 1998 it was much more of Villeneuve's match, and then by 99 came along, it was the Jordan era. And it's interesting. I can't remember which interview I was watching. It was some people that used to be in Autosport that have now moved to the new publication called The Race, which I want to talk about later. And they were interviewing some people that had worked alongside Eddie Jordan. And essentially, when he won the race in 1998, he never assumed that they could ever win a title. So he started to back away from F1 because he thought he'd achieved his dream and that was it. So when 1999 came along and they thought they had a championship winning chance, he'd already started to try and move away from the sport and was a bit like, I can't cope. And they kind of feel like that was a bit of a shame because he backed out almost a season too early to mount a proper championship challenge with Frentzen. Hill was abominable that season, sadly, but Frentzen proper shoe-in outside, and then it all started to kind of unravel from 2001 onwards. But I agree. Frentzen just wrong peak, wrong time, if that makes sense.
It's quite funny how often that happens, actually. Now, obviously, we're still in qualifying. We want to get to the car launches, but I did get a very interesting message between episodes. And it was pointed out to me quite correctly that we are in the last season of the decade. And when we did our end of season awards, we should maybe have talked a little bit about the decade as a whole. Now, I'd say we should really do that at the end of this season, but there were some interesting questions, chiefly among which, and one that gave me a lot of pause for thought, was who would we think was the biggest missed opportunity / wasted talent of the decade? And I found that actually really hard to answer because there's a lot out there, really. There is a lot out there. People who either weren't given enough time in the sport or had some bad luck or were taken out of the sport when they still had something to offer. Because there is actually a surprising number, although I found it a lot easier for between 2000 and 2010 than I did between 2010 and now. Because, Beetlejuice just said it. Ocon would have been the big one had he not come back. And a lot of people like to refer to Pascal Valentine, who you and I never really rated that highly. I still think Jean-Eric Verne, big missed opportunity there, and I think he's proving it. Because, really there was not much difference between him and Ricardo. No. I also kind of think that Jaime Alguersuari had more to offer besides Sick House DJing beats.
Because I guess if you're looking at... It's funny because when you're looking at this kind of era, Alguersuari's one, Buemi would count.
Yeah, I was never a Buemi fan, but he definitely had F1 pace.
Yeah. And then, because I was just racking through my brains, the other one that kind of sticks out as a weird missed opportunity, although I don't think he really showed well at all in Formula One, would be Lucas Di Grassi. I almost forget that he'd done a season Virgin.
Yeah.
But he was so comprehensively outdone by Glock that season, I didn't rate him at all. And I have to say that I didn't really know too much about his racing craft before he got into F1, and then I wasn't impressed with his F1 year at all and was not really sad to see him go because I didn't think he bought anything. But I've then become much more of a fan of him in Formula E and what he does with racing, which you talk about quite often on the cast, which kind of makes me realise that he's much more of a rounded human being. And I wonder if he came to F1 either too early or it was just that second seat in that Virgin team just always seemed to be nowhere near as good as the other one. Whether that was Glock outdoing it or just they couldn't run two cars at the same pace.
Shell Peak was on my list. Kamui Kobayashi.
Absolutely.
I have no idea how he ended up going from one of the hottest young properties in the sport to just gone in such a short period of time. Heikki Kovalainen as well always comes back to haunt me because his was a name that I think I heard more often before he got into Formula One than any other up-and-coming driver. Williams were excited about him and he was nothing to do with them. Like every issue of Autosport before he made his debut was full of like, oh, this is going to be the next big talent, this is going to be the guy that you have to watch. And then he showed up and was utterly underwhelming. So I don't think it was a missed opportunity in the sense of he delivered and then didn't get a fair crack. It was more a missed opportunity because all the indications seemed to be that he had the talent, and then, nah.
Yeah. Completely agree.
Kevin Magnussen would have been on that list too if he hadn't have come back.
Yeah, that was a weird one because he was good at the pace of Button, and if that would have been a one-season wonder, that would have been a shame. The other one, a couple that I'd like to shout out, but they're a bit more obscure. Andre Lotterer for his only single one-lap race in the Caterham. I think he's shown he has got more than what it takes, but didn't want to come back and do anything anymore. And more of a, I'm so intrigued, I'd like to have seen what Will Stevens could have done in a car that wasn't 2 seconds off everyone else. Because
Captain Will Stevens.
Yeah, I just think that he'd done such a quietly solid job, was doing better than Roberto Merri, who is a good front runner in GP2. And I don't know what he's then gone and done since, and I'd have just liked to have seen a proper wide boy geezer having a go elsewhere. It's always difficult with those back teams to kind of go, oh, what could you have done elsewhere? Because, it's just interesting.
Beetlejuice is very proud of us for not yet mentioning the Merrickson. Well, that's because I don't think he was a missed opportunity.
No.
I think it was a shame that he was gone, but he got a good run in the sport, like a lot longer than some other people get.
Yeah.
And while I miss him dearly, his wasn't a missed opportunity, and now he's super successful in America. So good on him.
He's had his time. Yep.
No, I agree with you about Will Stevens and also Max Chilton, to be honest.
Yeah, he seems to have become Carlin's IndyCar love boy, but I'm not quite sure if it's just that Carlin aren't quite capable of running a really competitive IndyCar team or not. But since he's joined Carlin, Chilton's been at the back of that IndyCar grid all the time, and it's kind of made me go, oh, because when he first went over and done some stuff in America, he didn't he win his first one?
Yeah, Indy Lights. He was very, very competitive.
And then he's been at the back of the grid in IndyCar all the way along. So I was a bit like, a bit confused. But I'd have liked to have seen him elsewhere. And I'd have loved to have seen Guido van der Garde.
Yeah, I mean, after his insane qualifying in the Caterham at Monaco, I was like, give this boy a chance. But Jolien Palmer will be watching this thinking, why aren't they mentioning me? I can tell you why, Jolien. Because you had a really impressive debut, I thought, and then after that you did nothing worthwhile at all.
No, not until your second last race, where you then went and done well in the wet at Singapore. Bookending his career with good drives, and then that was it. Plus, I would say that actually, I think he was miscast, and actually he brings more to the table as a presenter and commentator and sports pundit. I think he's really well suited to that role.
True. And then if we go to the other end of the wasted opportunity scale, so rather than the sport missing out on a driver missing out on success himself. The career that's always puzzled me more than any other F1 career has been Jacques Villeneuve.
Oh.
How can you go from having 2 insanely strong seasons, admittedly in a great car, to then just gradually fading away like a ghost in a film? Like every season after that, he was just gradually more transparent until he just wafted off into the ether.
Until a couple of things.
Manor
House has just popped in. What about D'Ambrosio?
About who?
Custard man. Jerome D'Ambrosio. Do we think he was a wasted talent? I can't decide.
What I could definitely say with some confidence is Jerome D'Ambrosio is a person who exists.
Oh.
I could definitely say that about him.
He does well in Formula E.
Yeah, he does all right. But you know, he never tickled my G spot.
Not a custard fan. I agree with you on Villeneuve though. When was the last time that a Formula One world champion was being kicked out of a Sauber?
Yeah, I know. I always forget he drove for Renault as well, like inexplicably.
Oh yeah, for the last couple of races when they bitten, was it Trulli they got rid of, wasn't it?
Beetlejuice does correctly point out that he did get some podiums out of the 98 Williams, which, you know, took some doing. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But, I mean, obviously leaving Williams was the worst decision he could have made. Particularly, it was a greedy decision as well, to go and enrich his manager by moving to BAR.
That is true. And then with his Beyond the Grid episode, he basically then, because they were friends, he said that it basically clouded all of his business judgment, that when he was offered to go elsewhere, he felt so loyal to his friend that he didn't want to leave. And so, effectively, that single-handedly ruined his F1 career. Whether or not he'd actively say, would I have changed anything, I don't know. But, I just found that really interesting.
I think Beetlejuice has got a very good analysis here. You know, a lot of bad decisions, and his career really went down from joining Pollock's team to staying to expecting a champion's treatment at Renault and Sauber after his bad performances. Yeah, I agree. Although, you know, I don't know why. I have some fond memories of his time at Sauber, and I'm really not sure why, because I don't think he did a very good job, did he?
No, he... the 25... start again. The 2005 season was absolutely atrocious. Because I remember... Because I watched it not too long ago, the 2005 German Grand Prix. He's all over the shot and like off the track for the first lap. Then he crashes into Robert Dornbos in a Minardi. Then he crashes into the other Minardi. Then he crashes into Thiago Montero's Jordan. And this is in the first like 15 laps. And there's a bit where he hits the back of Montero's Jordan down at the hairpin at Hockenheim. And then it does a cutback to the Sauber crew. And they're just laughing. And I think Martin Brundle's just like, well, because they were kind of implying that actually he'll be kicked out from that team really soon. It wasn't until a year later. But in 2006, he was on the pace and actually doing really, really well. And it wasn't until he had that crash again at Hockenheim, actually, and didn't take the race, that they were able to slip in a Kubica and then never bring him back. So, a bit of a weird end. I didn't think he'd done too badly at BAR, to be honest, but it was just, if you're a world champion, you should be able to comprehensively beat your teammates, which would have been, at the time, Olivier Panis, Jenson Button and Ricardo Zonta, and he only done in Zonta. Panis and Button were easily a match, so it kind of makes you go,
Yeah. As famously referenced in that song, things that make you go, Jacques Villeneuve is actually in that song, because he does make you go,
That is true.
Because something else about that, you know, I mean, I still think Jenson Button is, by and large, so easily forgotten by people, and I don't know why, because most of his career, he's been on it, you know. I think some of Jenson's best drives were in the BAR. I mean, obviously his ultimate drive was Canada 2011, but, you know, I remember his first win was in a BAR, and that was a sensational drive. And I remember seeing him get his first pole as well.
Yeah, I remember that. Here's a good shout out. Although I don't really know where he's gone now. Mannerhouse in the chat has just put Lopez for when he signed up to be the USF1 driver, and then the team didn't actually come into fruition, and then he couldn't get a drive anywhere else because he was stuck signed to that, and all the seats were taken.
He was driving for Dragon in Formula E, which is now Penske. Yes. And I don't know if he's still there, to be honest, or if he got fired. I think he maybe got fired.
I think he got fired at the end of mid last season, because he was doing. He went there to be expected to do lots of good things and then didn't. A bit like Nelson Piquet Jr.
another one.
overrated.
Not really a missed opportunity though, because he was just a gibbon.
Yeah, he was just terrible, and just basically Alonso's fuck puppet.
And then another question is, who do you think, or who do we think, could have won a championship but didn't? And the name that immediately leapt to mind was Mark Webber.
Yes, 2010.
It's a point of personal sadness for me that Webber retired without having won a championship.
Yeah, that 2010 championship should have been his, in my personal opinion. Vettel only led, of course, at the very, very end. Good luck by you, 8 tenths.
I don't know where it came from, but it was there.
Impressive, well done, well done. I'm having a proper think now.
I would say though, I've never won from pole. I always crash when I'm on pole, so this might be a win for you. Oh. Yeah, I mean, Beetlejuice also points out about going back to Button. The fact that he matched Villeneuve, Lewis, and Nando. Yeah, he seems to fly under people's radar, and it's very much the same with Damon Hill. Actually, I talk about Damon Hill far too much. It's really not healthy, but his career, when you look back at it, seems so short, and people forget how genuinely good he was. Because he's almost never on anyone's list as like great driver. It just doesn't happen.
That is true. Oh, we've had a really random comment come into the chat. John Holmes, welcome. Hope you are well. I'm a bit late to the chat, so I hope I'm not going too off topic. Talking of weird and wonderful people on different drives going down the order. John has put, how on earth did John Lacey keep on getting drives throughout his career? I rate John Lacey, actually. I think he had a bit of a wayward time towards the end with some of the Prost stuff, but I thought he was all right.
Actually, I kind of agree with both of you. And I know you're probably thinking, that's a stupid position to take. How can you possibly do that? But hear me out.
He did throw it in the bin quite a lot.
No, because the start of his career at Tyrrell, he was just scintillating.
Yes.
At Ferrari, it was always felt that it was the car more than him that was the issue. Mm-hmm. And he was my favourite driver actually as a young boy. But the me qualifying on mediums did nothing to help me. But then he went to Benetton, and as I remember, Berger had a really good season, and Lacey just looked like a twat. Mm-hmm. And so he certainly paved his own way out of Benetton, and I think dropping him from Benetton was the right thing to do. Then his Sauber form was sort of all over the shop. Like, when he was good, he was really good. But I don't recall him having especially great consistency. And then there was the sort of late night at the club pity shag with Prost. And he turned up at the worst point in the Prost project. When they were driving engines that they were claiming were made by a computer company. So
that is true.
So, I mean, I think part of it is Lacey got a bit of a raw deal with some of the cars he was put in, but at the same time, when he had a car that was capable, he just seemed to throw it away far too often. So I think it is a interesting question, and maybe if he'd stepped away from the sport after flopping at Benetton, we may remember him a bit more fondly, because he sort of struggled on a bit.
That's interesting, because I always remember I used to buy the F1 magazine, and at the end of '97, when he left Benetton for Sauber, It was the year when Ukyo Katayama retired, and they basically said that Berger and Katayama were retiring when they still had all of their pedigree and a really good reputation and X, Y, and Z. And basically the next paragraph was, "We're not really sure what Alesi has done signing for Sauber, and we're a bit worried it's going to ruin his reputation." Well, I'm going to shut up because I think this could be carnage.
Yeah,
you've got a much better start than me.
Probably correct. Not as good as Lewis Hamilton, though. Oh god, I'm being sandwiched again. This never goes well.
Are you off? Are you on?
No. I'm just trying to keep.
My wing.
Trying to keep. Did I get your front wing?
No. I smacked Hamilton. My fault that one. You were fine.
Oh, thank God. I was hoping for one Grand Prix where we don't twat each other. That was my aim.
I think I'm still okay though, so I'm continuing on. As you have a battle with Verstappen and Norris. Looking quite juicy, this.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a good race. I've not had a good wet race this season, and it used to be like that was my whole jam.
Yeah, you're usually much better wet racer than me. I'm too heavy-footed. Well, heavy-fingered.
Can I hold it though with these wings? That's what I'm worried about now. You've made me doubt myself with my setup.
I only bumped everything up one. That was all.
Being careful seems to be working.
And I'm slow because of my damaged wing, so I think you've got me. On this
are you going to pit already, or are you going to make it?
No, I'm going to try and see if I can hang it on for a bit. Because it's not ridiculously slow, it's just a bit slow.
At some point, though, I'm going to go right into the back of Lewis Hamilton. I can tell.
Yay! I'm still thinking about the question about a champion who never was. Because I think there could be quite a lot of people who could have been champion had they been in the right car at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, it is the 20 to 24 best drivers in the world usually, or like 23 plus Pastor Maldonado. So yeah, there are a lot who had the potential, but I think what we're talking about really is people who came sort of close in some way, or you know, it was kind of unquestioned that they were capable of doing it.
Yeah.
And most of them that I would put in that category got one, because you know, even Rosberg got one in the end.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'll concur with your Webber, whilst I can't think of anyone specifically that I would toot horns for more.
It's also hard to talk in the rain.
That is true. Although what I would say is that out of all the current crop of drivers who have got experience, who I think could win a world title, who are not at the moment, I nearly smashed Norris. I'm going to go completely random and say Sergio Perez.
I'm actually going to concur with you.
I think he's got the consistency to have done it over the season.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that. I don't know, all in all, if he really could have done it, because we've never seen him under that kind of pressure. But I believe he has it. He has the capacity within himself.
Yeah.
I nearly lost it there, and I've now bunched up all the cars behind me. I'm going to get monstered now. My tyres are getting cold because I've been too cautious. It's all going wrong, Simon.
I can see you.
Be gone, Verstappen. I banish thee.
Oh, Norris has got me back. Dang it. One talent that I am very excited for potentially in the future, though, just going back to test drivers before we get onto car launches, is that Renault have confirmed that because Jack Aitken has joined the Williams train, as we talked about last episode. Guan Yu Zhu has now joined as Renault test driver, because he's the Renault development driver. Oh, I'm going to have to go into the pits now. That was a big hit.
Oh dear. What happened?
I just smacked into someone through the Maggots and Beckett's complex. But yeah, it was interesting, because I remember talking about Guan Yu Zhu about 3 years ago, saying, look out, this man's going to be talented. Was potentially rookie of the season in GP2 last year. And I'm really glad that he is picking up lots and lots of fans and followers, and is making some waves at least. Oh, Fan, what have you done?
I've crashed, of course I have.
No! You out?
No.
Oh, virtual safety car though.
I aquaplaned a little bit, and too much power coming out of the corner, and that was it. Gone.
Anyone who's new to this podcast or watching back on replay, yes, you can play shots for front wing changes.
Yeah,
Lots of people that have watched this over the years have. That's probably why our numbers are so low. We used to get about 1,000 people watching this in its heyday. Now that they're all dead with alcohol poisoning because of playing that game, we only get about 50.
And they realise that we can't drive. Although again, you know, when I go into the lobbies, I win most of my races, so I can't be that bad.
No, completely agree. I'm on. Well, I've got the trophy on this game for being in the top tier and the top tier of safety as well. So, which I know is ironic given when you see all of the stuff that goes on this podcast. But yeah, and I'm an S rated on Gran Turismo, and that game just loves to give penalties even if you blink at someone. So.
To be honest, though, I'm still surprised at the quality of some of the driving in the lobbies on this game, because people will just, particularly if you're going to get past them, they'll just turn into you.
Yep. It slightly annoys me, but I with public lobbies, I do now quite like the fact that when someone's being lapped, it just ghosts them out now, because that stops people just waiting on the corner to smash people.
Yeah.
I can see you've put in a message there, John. I will get to you in a second once I've calmed myself down.
You should get past me now if there's any justice.
Possibly.
Can you believe we've gone from qualifying 1-2 to, by the end of lap 5, being 19th and 20th?
20th. Love it.
Story of our virtual careers.
This is true. I really struggle around this track in the wet, because so much of it requires precision, and I'm a bit of a smash the corner round, smash the steering wheel round, and that doesn't lend itself well around this track.
Well, shall we get on to the car launches?
Yeah, now that we aren't going to be doing very much in terms of brain driving.
I'm not far from being lapped. That's the thing about these short races. If we were still doing full-length races like we did last year, we might have a chance, but it's just not possible with 21 laps to go and possibly another pit stop.
I'm definitely pitting again.
Well, so the first one to break cover was the Haas, although it wasn't the new car, it was just the livery. And yes. the new livery is the old livery. The king is dead, long live the king. I thought it was an improvement over the old Haas livery.
Agree.
But still lacking imagination. Not really much to talk about, which is why it's come first. Uninspired, 1 out of 10. No, not really 1 out of 10, but definitely uninspired. It's not it's not ugly, but I don't know. I just like to have seen them do something, you know.
It is everything that screams, this is a corporate sponsor, this is a corporate project, please don't judge me. And whilst I think it is much better, and I was never a massive fan of the rich livery kind of stuff, especially when it then wasn't rich energy at all.
No.
And it just looked blank and a bit weird. Yeah, I still think they're my favourite livery of theirs, and favourite is being very much of a generous discussion. Probably is their first year, because it was a bit new, but that everything screams B&Q to me.
Yeah, it does. I'm interested to see what they actually do with the car itself, and whether there's any tweaks between testing and Australia that imply they've been keeping the cards close to their chest. Apparently it's a lot more closely aligned with the Ferrari this time, which I have mixed feelings about, as you know, because I really don't like them undermining the Constructors' Championship the way that they do. Yeah. But at the same time, their car last year was so dire that I can understand why they took this decision. Nearly lost it again there. Gotta stop being so fast. So, I mean, yeah, not really much to say on that front. Next up, I believe there was another team for which we've not really got much to add, Red Bull, and they actually did launch their car.
Yes.
Now, in terms of livery, really not much to talk about. I said to you before we went live, I think the Red Bull livery will age very well, and in time we'll look back at it as one of the sort of all-time classics.
Yeah.
However, I kind of hoped for some tweak. And in terms of the car itself, it's a case very much of evolution rather than revolution, but I think that's arguably a good thing. And with the AlphaTauri also aligning a lot closer with the Red Bull, it certainly gives them a strong developmental platform going forward to find gains or test variations of things between the four cars with consistent powertrain and a certain amount of consistency of platform. So ultimately, I think it's going to be a very competitive machine, and it will probably it will become more competitive as the season goes on. But in terms of livery, yeah, hardly the most exciting thing I've seen.
No, I agree. It's no particular changes there, which was a bit meh, although completely expected. What was really interesting, and there's been a bit of a spat about it actually, is sirens. Oh, we hadn't had any yet.
No.
Oh, well done. The big thing for me is Verstappen is already saying we need to be able to come out the box fighting instead of having like a superb car in the second half of the year, because I want my championship this year. And the reason why he's going for that is that this is, I think, the last year where he can be the youngest world champion. So it's very, very interesting that he is making all of the punches out of the bags. And then he started off saying that, kind of in the same interview, I think it might have been, that Lewis Hamilton is just okay.
Yeah.
And it's all about the car. Which Hamilton just went, well, if he's going to start acting like that, that's a weakness, because he shows that he's scared, and I'll just do my actions out on track, cheers. Which I think is probably the best way to answer it.
Yeah.
So it's funny that Max is already throwing weight around already since launch, and I don't know if that's a indicator one way or the other, but it's just interesting that he feels the need to come out and say we need to be competitive straight out of the box, this is my year, it needs to be my year, blah 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 blah. The other thing that really, really interests me as well is what you've touched on around the closer working same powertrain between themselves and AlphaTauri. I think this year is going to almost be like last year was for me was very experimental and just making sure that the partnership worked.
Yeah.
Now that they've got that battled down, this year for me, for those two teams, is going to be about cementing and understanding how efficiently they can chuck things onto the AlphaTauri to see how it works, to then bump up ideas and stuff to the big team once it's correlated. Because now they are going to be working on the same playing field and they know it works. Those relationships are bedded in. Now it's all about efficiency. And you're right, it's 4 cars working against 2 and 2 for Ferrari and Mercedes if they want to go down that route and do it properly. So yeah, I'll be very interested to see how that goes, and I think that'll be great for AlphaTauri as well because it will jump them up the order.
Yeah, completely. I don't know how I feel about the chance of Red Bull coming out of the gate strong, because historically it's never been what's happened. But I'm kind of hoping that they do, and I'm hoping for 3 viable cars at the front. Don't know how likely that is. I'm kind of hoping it's Charles Leclerc's year, to be honest. And actually Ferrari's the next team up. Because interestingly, there's signs on that Ferrari that they're going a bit more aggressive out of the gate. And I think that's actually probably the right thing to do, because they had the best car for a large portion of the year and just sort of threw it away. And they said, we decided we're going to let our drivers race next year. I take that as a coded message as basically Charles Leclerc.
Yep. So
because previously it was decided they couldn't race, and that they said, Vettel will get priority in the first half of the season. It took 2 Grand Prix for that decision to already come into question, and it took another 10 Grand Prix before they figured that lesson out. And by then it was too late. I'm hoping, and I really do mean it, that the Ferrari is good enough for Charles to make a run on the title.
I would dearly love Charles Leclerc to get a world title before Max Verstappen. And it doesn't mean that I don't want Verstappen to win a title, because he's clearly got the talent and the expertise and the capability to do it, and there's no question about that. But there's something for me, we love an underdog here on Failcast, and out of the two, I just think it would be absolutely hilarious to see the thunder, quote unquote, stolen from Verstappen to go to Leclerc.
Or, surprise, Lando Norris, world champion, out of nowhere. Youngest world champion in history.
That would make me laugh.
Yeah.
Although if we're going to do that, it needs to be, I don't know how all the ages work out, but if we could do a Leclerc 20, Carlos Sainz 21, and then Norris 22, that would make me delighted.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. That Ferrari does look really, really aggressive and more extreme. And this ties into a point that I wanted to bring up just in general. Loads of people from Autosport have left. It seems like Autosport was having a bit of a sinking ship and went to join the race, which used to be called Let's Go Racing. And I only used to follow them because they live streamed Super Formula. Now that they've started to actually build up their site and get it up and running off the ground, they've done a really good technical analysis of the Ferrari launch. And they were going around all different parts of the car with Ed Straw. And he was just like pointing out all of these different things past this car versus last year, just showing how much more angular and extreme the design is, and how all different parts of it would in theory work together. So yeah, I've got high hopes for that. They just need to make sure, obviously operationally this year, that they don't throw it away like they did last year.
Incidentally, Alfa Romeo, who we'll come to in a moment, they are much more aligned with Ferrari this year. So maybe it's not a case of 4 cars versus 2 with Red Bull, because also I couldn't help but notice that Alfa Romeo's car shakedown was at Misano, the Ferrari test track.
Ooh.
Which I thought was interesting. Something else I've noticed is a lot of cars adopting McLaren's front wing. Have you noticed that? The
Yes.
front wing mounting points underneath the nose, they're all very McLaren-y suddenly. Which is a nice segue because McLaren is the next team up. And the first thing I want to say is that livery was my absolute favourite. As soon as I saw it, I was like, wowzers. They finally listened to me as well, added more blue. Because in the first of the orange years, the orange looked too washed out, and I was complaining about that. And then they found the right shade of orange in the back cupboard and painted the car correctly. But then it still looked a bit anemic and washed out because there was just no dark colour offsetting it properly. And then they added a little bit at the back, and it looked really good. And now they've added it on the side pods, and it just looks so much better for it. And those side pods are very, very aggressive. That packaging on that car is sensational.
I couldn't work out initially if it was because of the colour contrast made it look more aggressive, but no, I think you're right.
No, it's very, very tightly packaged. I'm hoping the power unit can handle it because the Renaults do have a bit of a history of blowing up in warm conditions, so restricting the cooling is maybe not the wisest thing, but I guess this is a prep year for Mercedes.
Oh, yeah.
And it reminds me very much of the old Newey McLarens.
Mm-hmm.
That, we'll package it to my aero design and everything will just have to fit. And it looks like it was designed around that philosophy. So my only concern for McLaren is reliability. But, on face value, it looks like it should be another step forward. Maybe only a small one, but it really looks like it could. It could deliver.
I would dearly love them to be half a second to 0.7 of a second off the leading trios and just continue to chop that deficit. It was about a second last time. I want to see it halved, down again, so that when it comes to 2021, if you're punting within half a second of pole, I think that's more than good enough.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm not sure it's necessarily going to prove to be such a step, but hope springs eternal, and at least McLaren seem to be on the right trajectory. So I'm crossing my fingers for a good season for them. Also because I love Lando and Carlos as a team. I think it's the best team. Now, technically it should be Alfa Romeo, but they only released a testing livery, although they did show their new car. Again, a very aggressive step forward, very similar to the Ferrari in a lot of respects. And they have promised a new livery this year, but we don't know what that livery is. They just said new livery. And I'm hoping they mean actually a new livery. I always thought the Alfa Romeo liveries were very tasteful. I did think it was a pretty car, but it kind of felt like a wasted opportunity. I felt like there was a lot more brash and experimental they could have done with that Alfa Romeo branding that they just never did. And I'm hoping when they say new livery, they really do mean new livery and not the same one but with all the logos on there because they've inexplicably signed Robert Kubica.
Money, money, money. Someone's got to bankroll the whole Alfa Romeo brand, surely.
Well, not necessarily go full Italian with it, Beetlejuice, but it was one of those liveries where the mock-ups made by livery fans online were all better than the real livery, and that's what bothered me. I don't know, maybe there was too much white on the car. Maybe it felt like it should have been redder. I don't know. I don't know what it was, because it's not like I didn't love it. I did like that livery very much. I thought it's the first livery that I described as tasteful.
I wanted some green on it. I felt like it wanted to be an Italian flag, but was missing the Parmesan.
In that case, Beetlejuice, yeah, I think we're on the same page with full Italian. I thought you'd taken from that you meant I should... I've caught up to the cars. Oh no, they pitted. I didn't catch them up at all.
I've caught up to them though, and I'm only a few seconds up the road from you.
You're 10 seconds ahead of me.
Ooh.
And I've given up, to be honest. I was too busy focusing on talking rather than driving. This is just another write-off Grand Prix for me. It's been one of those seasons. But yeah, by full Italian meaning brash, then we're on the same page. I thought you meant I was talking about Italian flags and so on. I mean, to be honest, the fact that it's still Sauber as well makes me sort of a bit reluctant to go too far down the Alfa Romeo route. But then at the same time, if you're going to do it, do it properly. And I still think that team's going to be Sauber again in 2021. I'm pretty sure. And I for one will be very happy about that.
Yeah.
And then we get on to, I suppose, the star of the show so far, AlphaTauri.
I'm literally rubbing my knees.
Yeah. For something that, if I had to describe it to you verbally, sounds so simple. Mm-hmm. It's everyone seems to agree the best looking car so far. I'm surprised, as you were actually, you said the same thing, I'm surprised by just how much I love it. I think it's hard to do a predominantly white car well, and they seem to have really hit the mark. It wasn't the direction I expected them to go, actually. Mm-hmm. I expected them to go sort of... Do you remember the charcoaly Saubers from a few years ago?
I did not like those at all.
No, but I expected them to go that route with maybe like a blue accent or something. But they've impressed me. The only thing that bothers me, which is something I complained about before we went live, is that every playthrough of this game next year, every stream, every video, everyone's going to be AlphaTauri. That's just going to be it. But credit where it's due, it is the best looking car, and it knocked McLaren off the top spot for me. And I don't see any of the other teams doing anything to dislodge it. I know Williams and Alfa Romeo are both pitching new liveries this year. I know the Williams livery has some red added to it, so it's red, white, and blue. So I'm keen to see it. But yeah, not entirely sure it's going to do anything to dislodge AlphaTauri as the George Clooney of the grid. Interestingly as well, though, Renault planned the launch and then sort of gave up.
Yes, and I've seen some... they've released some photos where it's got a lot of black on it. I can give some insider knowledge that the reason for all of that is that they're in the middle of signing a sponsorship deal which would require some colour changes, and so they're not really quite sure what colour their car's going to be. The sponsorship deal was supposed to have been done, and it isn't yet, so that's why it's all kind of a bit like hit and miss. So hopefully, for Renault's sake, they will actually do that sponsorship deal, because they're going to need to bankroll something, depending on what on earth that manufacturer is going to do in the future, because I still think that is a big unknown for the future. But yeah, it's interesting. I saw some comments online actually that basically said the yellower the car got, the worse the car has been. So maybe going back to black along with Amy Winehouse will actually be a good thing for him.
I'm pretty sure Ricciardo will be overdosing on smack if he has another season like that one. Beetlejuice says, no launch because their budget was used for their CEO's defence team. Probably true. We'll show up to the hospitality zone in a camper van with some tents. Very interesting, because I find it hard to believe Renault would run in different colours other than their own corporate colours. That said, they do clearly have a money issue. Incidentally, so do Mercedes, but it doesn't seem to be hampering them. But here's something that I didn't join the dots on. So up on Twitter the other day, someone posted a video of what looked like an F1 demo run. I don't know where it was, but it was on a racetrack, obviously, and I couldn't identify the car.
Right.
And I thought, oh, well, maybe it's just like someone's, like an old Pirelli mule car, or someone's bought an old F1 car and repainted it or something. Then I zoomed in, and I saw it was a Renault, but it was, like predominantly black, but the yellow bits were painted red.
Ooh.
Don't know why. It was still carrying the Renault branding very prominently, but it was clearly like an old car. I think it was an old Lotus, because it had the bump in the nose.
Oh yeah.
But I sort of didn't think anything more of it. I just thought, oh, that's a weird paint scheme. But I wonder now. I do wonder if they would run a red and black scheme. Would seem very weird, and I don't know who would be sponsoring them to make them do that.
PDVSA Pastas one had a little bit of red in it, but only a tiny bit. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, it's actually worked. Yeah, very strange.
Beetlejuice says black parts will be yellow. DHL sponsor confirmed. You heard it here first because it's inaccurate.
Like their tracking software. What?
No, I mean, Renault are the big enigma for me coming into this season.
I don't know where to put them or place them or know where they're going to get the expertise to go forward or go backwards.
I mean,
or sideways. I agree.
They've got two great drivers, and they've got such a proven track record in the sport that I'm still astonished they've gotten it so wrong recently. And yet here we are. They say their aim is to regain fourth in the constructors, which is also the aim of Force India and McLaren. I wonder if they're all going to be similar on pace. It's going to be very hard to say, simply because the midfield was so mixed up last year, and it's not a new formula season. So you'd expect things to stay fairly stable, but at the same time, the cars look quite radically altered so far.
I think they're extremes of concepts that they've been running beforehand, and for me, that then means that McLaren should, in theory, move forward. Maybe Renault go forward a little bit. I think Alfa Romeo, they said they were just as surprised themselves at how well they were going at the end of the season because they barely updated the car all year.
Gotta stop touching the curbs. The curbs are not my friend. But I mean, Alfa Romeo, Sauber have had a touch of the Ligiers the last few years. Like, even when they're doing well, they don't seem to really know why. I'm just glad to see them off the back of the grid, because that's not where they belong.
No.
They belong in my heart, and ideally somewhere close to the podium, if not on it. My big hope, though, I suppose, for the year is that Williams get their crap together. And I have to say, last year's car was a constant improvement.
I was impressed at how they'd not quite rejoined the back of the grid again, but you could see the improvement over the course of the year and the delta increase or decrease, sorry. So that gives me warm fuzzies.
Well, yeah, I mean, by the end of the year, they were right on the back. Now, still at the back, but with two drivers with four arms, you would expect things to maybe be going a little bit better.
Agree.
I have a lot of faith in George Russell. I do think the team started to find out where it was going wrong, because the evidence for that is fairly compelling. They were closing the gap up. I really hope they get off the back, and I'm quite prepared to sacrifice Haas to do that.
Yeah,
But again, it's also hard to say where Haas are going to be because they've essentially thrown that crap car in the bin. And you can't really know with them till Bahrain anyway because their car has always gone well at Australia as long as it has 4 wheels.
That is true. Haas are an interesting one, a bit like Renault for me, in that I think they could go either way, and what's interesting is that the midfield can't really deal with too many teams going either way at the same time, because if they do, then you're not dropping 2 or 3 positions, you're dropping 10.
No, I mean...
Which is fantastic, but it makes it quite difficult to predict and exciting as well.
And for the first time, there's not really a team coming into the season that I have a suspicion will falter or go backwards. Do you know what I mean? Like most of the teams seem to be in a better place than they were. Either because they're sharing platform uniformity with bigger teams that seem to be going the right way, or simply because the team seems to be in better health or morale. It's very hard to... It does make for an interesting pre-season. I mean, I know you can't read into testing, but I'll be watching those numbers very, very, very closely.
Oh,
yes. I mean, what was interesting the last few years was... I hate this. Was watching Ferrari lift off over the line to artificially inflate their lap times, and it always made you wonder, like, okay, how fast are they really? And then it turned out actually they were very fast. And this year I don't think you'll see any of that just because it's so close that everyone will want to kind of find out where they really sit.
I agree. Sorry, I was very confused because the safety car was stopped on the track, but it wasn't telling me to go past, but you do.
It might keep you behind the safety car until I've caught you up and you're not far from lapping me. Because I've had a lot of offs.
Were you still in the lead lap though?
Yes.
Hey.
Not by much though. I hate this delta.
Yeah, I don't like this either.
I think we may finish this race under the safety car. Sorry everyone.
I reckon it's going to let us go with 2 to go. It's always 3 laps. Nearly. I don't know, but it's the latest patch 1.20, was supposed to be so that safety cars and virtual safety cars were thrown properly. So whoever that was that retired must have stopped their car like on the track or something.
Yeah, they did. It was Stroll, and I saw him. Now I have to catch the safety car queue, and that's going to take me like 3 laps.
Okay.
But yeah, let's try.
Bring it.
Now the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't normally like to indulge in gossip, but the internet has been aflame with the fact that Valtteri Bottas has been posting pictures of him and his new girlfriend with the hashtag #HatersGonnaHate. And people were saying that was fast, and now the rumour is, was he having an affair? What's going on? Obviously, don't really care, but it is some F1 news that's happened. Like, his business is his business.
Quick. Yeah, maybe the 3.0 was actually a reference to the fact that he was in some kind of ménage à trois.
Well, you know, he's got the looks for it, that Finnish stallion.
Boo. Or maybe that's why he couldn't keep up the performance all year round, because he was so fucking knackered by halfway, trying to keep both of them honest.
Yeah, exactly. He was flitting between two locations all the time, trying to juggle two relationships.
Yeah. Hot Eskimo igloo times had by all.
But not for the first time. This is going to be a seriously make or break year for him.
I feel like he must just live in a china shop, because every year's a make or break year at the minute for him. But it's going to be like that until someone actually wants to sign him for more than a season at a time. And I feel like every time they do that, it's just everyone going, "We're not really in love with you that much," and they're just waiting for Russell or Ocon to pop out and say hello.
I mean, I do get a quite strong feeling that this is his last season, unless Lewis retires.
Yes, and I think that is purely why they do the 1 year deals, because they need to hedge their bets for Hamilton, and I don't see Hamilton going to Ferrari. I keep seeing that going everywhere. I think he'll stay with Mercedes and then go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I knew instinctually he wouldn't leave until he'd at least had a run at equaling Schumacher's title or surpassing it.
Yeah.
So I honestly think 2021 could realistically be his last season if Mercedes come into the new formula and they're not championship contenders for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But he's my favourite for the championship this year. I can't really see past him.
Sadly.
Although hope springs eternal that Leclerc can beat him to it, or Bottas. So I'd take a Bottas World Championship. Why not?
I'd be absolutely flummoxed, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, he's got moments where you think he could do it, but he's just so inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he can't pull out a stunning quali lap or an amazing race and win commandingly, because he's done it. It just, again, he's in the Frentzen triangle. He just can't seem to do it as often as Lewis. And I've never been the biggest Lewis fan, but I do have to say, when it comes to like digging deep and finding an extra 5/10 out of nowhere, Lewis can do it.
So here's a this or that section for you to have a good rummage with. And it's gonna play who's who for your number 2. Bottas or Coulthard?
Coulthard.
Bottas or Massa?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
I'm gonna go with Massa.
Yeah, I suppose actually, Massa. Yeah.
Pre-head injury, probably. I know they say it didn't. He says it doesn't affect him, but I'm sure it did for a couple of years. Bottas or Barrichello? Double B's.
Oh, yeah, Barrichello.
Oh, I was going to say Bottas or Raikkonen in his Ferrari era.
Bottas.
Oh, I agree with the Ferrari era. He seems to have woken up a bit at Alfa Romeo.
Yeah. But I see what you're driving at. That he's not even the best of the number 2s.
Bottas or Irvine?
Oh, Irvine, hands down. Irvine's another driver who I think should have won a world title but didn't.
Yeah.
And I think he's my favourite number 2 of all time. I think I remember saying a few weeks back, my favourite F1 quote is from him. I'm the best F1 driver in the world apart from Michael Schumacher, so this is exactly where I should be. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense.
Love it.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that your teammate's faster than you, if it's true.
Safety car in this lap.
I have actually caught up to the train, though, which I didn't think I would.
Amazing. I was going to say, it was a late call to get the safety car in.
Yeah, it was my fault. Sorry!
I hate this.
Yeah. It's going to be a huge accident as well. involving both of us.
Of course, even though there's 10 cars between us, but it does not matter.
We will find each other again.
We'll meet again.
We're not racing yet, are we?
No, which was what was confusing me.
There we go,
Now.
green flag. And everyone runs off into the distance because this car can't put down power with this setup. Bye!
This pace is strong, but be aware your tyres need to go the distance.
Jeff just got on the radio saying, this pace is strong. It's like, I'm sick of his sarcastic bullshit. Jeff, this has been the buggiest iteration of Jeff for me. I think people who watch my streams when I was doing career mode will recall the amount of times it's been pissing with rain and he goes, I think slicks are the right tyres.
Sarcasm Jeff mode on.
We advise moving to mix 2. Fuel to mix 2.
Jeff, I don't care what you advise.
George Russell's full. Fell fuck off.
Oh, Codemasters. They got an extension to their contract for these games.
Yeah, I saw that. Which is, I mean, I must admit, like, they are very fun.
Yeah, they are. But
I
there are
know
some
we do take the piss.
there are some things that shouldn't be happening though after 10 years making the game.
That is true.
And like, they still can't get the safety car right or find a level of AI that's fun without being suicidal. And I'm still upset that they don't have the Formula E license, and Formula E don't seem to be in a rush to bring out a game, even though everyone's demanding one.
Well, they've got some content. Is it Assetto Corsa or is it the other one where they're doing the Formula E track pack and Gen 2 car?
Yeah, but it's not the same, is it?
This is your final lap.
I know it's not the same as having like a full dedicated game. No.
And isn't it just like a generic Gen 2 car rather than the teams?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I've not bought it, so I've not played.
Because I want to do Failcast Formula E. Oh, by the way, I know you don't know this yet, but now you do. We're doing Indy again this year because I think we can do it better.
Okay.
We're doing the Indy 500 this year.
Yes. Do you know what? Actually, I've been watching all of the Indy 500s from like 80s and 90s. Because the Indianapolis Motor Speedway has its own YouTube channel where it uploads all the races to. I didn't realise that they were just all online, free to watch. And I must say, like 80s and 90s motorsport television coverage is so glorious, and some of its cheesiness that's going on, and the way how it tries to describe like how cars drive and race. And there was one where they was trying to show like how many calories it takes for a Indy driver to race round the Indy 500. And they've basically got a car and then they've just stacked loads of McDonald's next to it. I was just like, oh, this is like top quality class journalism all the way.
Hashtag top bants.
Yeah. I was watching the one where Michael Andretti retired, and it's his last one. And there's a 5-minute article, and every single sentence starts with "through his eyes," and in the comments it's just "through his eyes," and it goes on for about 10 minutes. Proper cringe.
Finished last.
Ah!
I just couldn't catch the cars in front in the wet. Something we forgot to talk about, and we'll have to squeeze it in at the end now. Big lols that Fernando Alonso there's a McLaren on the podium. Big lols at Fernando Alonso for being kicked out of every possible IndyCar drive by Honda.
Yes.
He got turned down by 2 teams, I believe, already, and then a third one today I saw he was blocked from by Honda.
Just desserts. You need to create. You create your own bed you lie in, and he shat on all of them. So, love the guy in some respects. Needs a slap in others.
Well, see, you finished 6th.
Yes.
That was a hell of a recovery drive. Well done, sir. Well
There
done.
were some banzai efforts, I'll tell you that. But it's
Very,
20-second penalty. How did you manage that?
I didn't even realise that I'd got a 20-second penalty.
Speeding under safety car.
Did I? Oh.
You had a drive-through that you didn't take.
Oh, fuck. Oh, well, it didn't
We
matter.
could have taken anyway.
It didn't matter in the end. But it was interesting because the debate online about him being blocked from these IndyCar seats was very divided. Most people were saying, well, this is just stupid and petty from Honda and that, he's the best driver in the world and they should have him. But then there's enough people saying what we've been saying, which is like, well, is he though? Hold on. Let's look at the evidence. People were saying, I actually kind of blame him for McLaren being in the doldrums, which, you never used to see that before, but I think it's become increasingly obvious.
Especially as soon as he's gone, look at the Ascension, and he just seems to have the poisonous touch. And it's funny how now, actually, outwardly, people don't want to be associated with the double world champion, the driver who's got all of this stuff, because of the negative connotations that come with him. And I wonder if that poison is now seeping outward, so that actually people are like, do you know what, I don't want to be associated with you, thank you very much, because you can't graciously accept blame together, if that makes sense.
No. So, reap what you sow. Well, thank you very much, sir. Excellent drive from you, and you're still in the run for the Drivers' Championship, and we are 1 point behind Lewis Hamilton. Well done indeed.
Thank you very much.
We are back in 2 weeks' time, by which time, if I'm not wrong, all the cars will be released, and maybe we've already had a test.
Ooh, juice. Yeah, well, there's only 3 days of testing this year, so it's extremely tight. And, looking forward to that indeed. Thank you so much, everyone that came in to watch. We had quite a few comments going on, quite a few watchers on this side. And thanks to Beetlejuice, the Twitch man himself, for joining on the other side.
Yep, thank you very much, everyone. It was a pleasure to have you. Bye. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Happy Valentine's.
Ooh.